Welcome to the Action Generation Fishing Report. I'm your host, Andy Alvarez.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Minia.
Today we're at the Fishing Club of the Palm Beaches here in Palm Beach, West Palm Beach. And we have a nice crowd here today, and we're going to be talking, we're going to go over about what we normally do, and we're going to talk about what was being caught over the weekend. We do have an inshore report here with Danny and Devin as well. Me and Danny are going to have a great debate for you on some recreational stuff going on with some species here and rules and weather and predictions for this weekend and everything else when we get back.
Welcome to X Generation Fishing Report, Offshore Report of the Week. Today I'm joined by Captain Mike. Captain Mike, tell me about the offshore. I know what I hear, and I know you got your predictions too with that, and you know what you hear.
So I did hear of which somebody over here did also say, I did hear of a decent vermilion bite going on right now off the West Palm Beach area. Basically, they are decent size right now too. The guy got his limit. The guy that I know that went out got his limit. He had a few people that was supposed to go with him, didn't go, but he said he got his limit very fast and easy. I'm also hearing that a little bit of a better bottom bite going on right now.
Things are starting to lay down. We got past this tropical depression we had this past weekend,
right,
or tropical cyclone, whatever they want to call it.
Right.
It brought a lot of rain, and of course that's going to stir up the water. They're going to open up the locks and dump more water into from the Lake Okeechobee into our estuary, and that fuels out to the ocean. But coming into the weekend, I think a little bit of that's going to settle down, and we're going to see a good snapper bite like you've seen.
Right.
You've heard.
Captain Danny's going to talk about the water coming out a little bit more in detail. He was just kind of fueled up about it a little bit.
Well, we're going to talk about that later on.
But the sailfish have been biting prior to this. The dolphin have been biting prior to this. We're coming up on a full moon, so hopefully the wahoo start biting.
I feel like the wahoo bite is going to be good.
And that's what's going to be our hot fish as well.
We're going to get that cooler water wahoo that come down, like we've talked about in the previous shows. It's that time of year where they have rode out, and they're going to be feeding again.
Yep. And the last few years, the wahoo just seem to be getting bigger and bigger, where once every 10 years you heard of a giant wahoo. Well, now, every year you're hearing about 2 or 3 monster wahoo being caught. So
I hear about that, but then the technology now has become so much better in targeting these fish, and all the new sonar we have with the side scan, and you can see the temperature depths on the water.
See the bait, the temperature.
See the bait, so the spots.
Thermoclines.
You know the spots to hit, and we know when we fish how to fish the major and minors on that. And on top of compiling all those things, I feel like it's not that the fish are more abundant, but they're easier to target to plan out your troll on that.
That's right. Well, let's go into the hot fish then, since we're talking about wahoo. Wahoo is what we're planning on the hot fish being. It's coming up on the full moon. We like to fish the tide changes, like Devin just mentioned, the minor and major periods. Try and basically revolve your trip around those time periods, especially if you are targeting wahoo. Wahoo are one of those fish that if you're going to get them, you're going to get them during those times. They're very finicky when they bite, but when they bite, it's almost predictable if you can follow those major and minor fishing times. Basically, everybody has their favorite wahoo spots. If you don't have one, starting at the inlet is a good spot. Every Boynton Inlet, Boca Inlet, West Palm Inlet is a good place to start. And then, as you're fishing, find your better spots, your better drop-offs. If you've heard of wahoo being caught in certain areas, you go to those areas as well.
And the reason why Mike says look for the inlets, and we talk about the major and minors, that's when the tide changes, and that's when the bait comes in and out of the inlet. And those pelagic species, they're passing the inlets, they're cruising through, and they're picking off those fish.
That's right.
That are either sick, lame, a little slower than the other fish.
Or just getting flushed out.
Or getting flushed out on that major move on the tide.
Right.
And that's the way you target them.
Right. So being that the hot fish is wahoo, we did bring Mr. Mullet's rigs for the rig of the week.
So this is the rig of the week. We're going to show you one of our preferred rig mullet to fish.
So Mr. Mullet's is sold at X Generation Custom Rods. Bait and tackle store. There's only a few people that actually rig their mullets like this.
That's a gorgeous looking bait.
What the difference is that these mullets, it's an old school Palm Beach, Boynton Beach thing. They're not split tail mullets. All right. Very few people know how to rig this because the old timers that did it back then, they didn't really show very many people how to do it. And what happens is it's deboned from the inside, but it's not split tailed. There's a small incision from the anal cavity. You use a very special fillet knife. You go inside the fish with that fillet knife, fillet the meat off the bone on each side. You crack the bone up by the neck, and you pull the bone out. And then you go back in and carve out some meat. So the mullet is totally deboned. Inside out. Everything is intact. There's no cuts anywhere except for the hook comes. These, once you go ahead and get used to these rather than the split tails, they swim like they're alive when they're in the water. These things literally. You can, and because of the way that they're carved out and deboned, they don't wash out. I've actually trolled these all day, took it off, put it back in my cooler, froze it, and used it the next time I went out all day again. And I guarantee you can do that if it doesn't get hit. So was that 2 times you didn't catch a wahoo? That was 2 times.
Just making sure we're clear on that.
Just say, you can also troll these a little bit faster too. If you're strictly targeting wahoo, sometimes I like to put 2 of these down. And what I do is I'll just bump it up quite a little bit faster than what I normally would because they won't wash out, and I have that confidence that I can go just a little bit faster using these baits. And if you are going to do the faster thing, I will put like a bigger lure in front of it, like a skirted jet head type lure. That way it does give it some more some more protection. But you troll it naked with a sea witch, whatever you want, even a little bit faster than you normally would. And I'm talking like 3 miles faster, 3-4 miles faster than you normally would. The other thing is too, they're double hooked. A lot of the major manufacturers won't use the double hooks. They're extra strong hooks.
The hooks that Doug uses too, they're quality hooks.
That's right.
They're very quality. These hooks, I mean, you set a hook on a wahoo with that, those aren't going to bend out or straighten out.
Right. So here's the deal. It's going to take some getting used to if you're used to using split tails, but they are better. And when you see it in the water, hold it next to the boat and have the boat just go the right speed so it's not flopping all over the place, because when it's right next to the boat, it's hard to get it to swim right. Or when you're pulling your shock leader in at the end of the day, and I'll explain a couple places I like to use it, but when you're pulling in that shock leader, you'll see that bait just swimming back there just like it's alive. And so the places I like to use it are this. I like to put one on a planer, and 50-foot shock leader I use on the planer, and I'll put one on a 48-ounce trolling lead with a 50-foot shock leader. The reason I do that is the planer tends to stay really close to the boat, whereas the shock leader will stay out further. So when you make your turns, there's no chance of getting any kind of tangle or anything like that. And when you wahoo fish, you want to make fast turns. I'm not going in a straight line in the same depth. I'm going in and out all the time. I'm going out to 300, back to 100, out to 500, back to 100. Until I find something I like, until I find a thermocline, until I find a weed line, until I find a little more current, blue water.
And then sometimes even on the turns, you'll get hit on those.
That's right. The bait drops a little bit when you're making that turn. Wahoo like changes. They like changes in direction. They like changes in speed. I mean, we've even gotten hit once when we, got a bonita, slow the boat down, all of a sudden a wahoo hits a rod. So it's not bad to change speed, change direction, do crazy things when you're wahoo fishing.
So if you guys have ever seen the dredge cams on wahoo, what they do is if they see that bait tracking like that, they'll follow it, they'll chase it, they'll come and they'll look at it, then they'll peel off on it. Sometimes if you get them on that turn and that bait drops down, what they're doing is they're going down to come up for that kill shot on the bait.
That's right.
And they're going to hit that bait coming up, and that's it. It's hooked up.
Yep. So this is the Mr. Mullet's mullet. He does make other baits as well. Just as an example, he does what a lot of people don't do is these trolling squids.
Tell you what, those things are dolphin candy.
And that's exactly what they are. They're mono rigged. Now, if you see something you like the mullet, he'll rig these with mono if you want them rigged for mono. Dolphin will hit these all day with wire. I mean, I've gotten big dolphin on these. But anything you like, he does ballyhoo, he does bonita strips. You can order any size.
You know, with these, if you're going over to the Bahamas too, rigged with the mono is great for the tuna.
That's right.
If you're tuna fishing in the Bahamas.
For the yellowfin tuna. So if you have anything specific, he'll do it for you. Just go in the xgen, tell Andy what you want, and he'll order them. But also this, these squids are really nice to have as well. They're all vacuum sealed and packaged professionally.
Story on that, when we went out fishing in that tournament we did, dolphin tailing, first thing we did, we put out one of those and it was an instantaneous hookup. The minute we got that line out and got that squid swimming.
That's right. We only put 2 of these out. He actually, believe it or not, saw a dolphin tailing on top. All right? It was weird.
I
thought it was a tuna. We stopped the boat, put two lines out, and it was a double hookup of dolphin. But these are what we like to use when we're dolphin fishing. And this is your xgen Fishing Report Rig of the Week.
We'll see you next week. Welcome to your xgen Fishing Report, Inshore Report of the Week. Today I'm joined by the one and only Captain Danny Barrow. Yes, that one and only.
What's up, buddy?
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to be sitting.
So we talked a little bit off air, and we about the inshore, and we touched on them opening the spillways.
Look, Lake Okeechobee's at 17 feet. We are getting a deluge of runoff from Lake Okeechobee. Every spillway in Palm Beach County at one time or another throughout the last few weeks and up to today is you're seeing water coming out of them spillways, and it's coming from Lake Okeechobee, minus Jupiter. The Jupiter spillway has been open quite a bit. They're getting a lot of runoff up there for the guys that fish in that area and know it. The water's kind of dirty up there, and that's all from the farmland. And there's cattle land west of there, farmland west of there. It ain't much different. Look, it's muddy water, and the lagoon has got so much fresh water in it right now that the bite is really, really hard to get. The snook are there. There's tons of snook around. Right now, the thing to do, and I think I mentioned this last week, if you can fish at night for these snook, go fish them at night around the bridges and the dock lights, because they're having a problem seeing these baits in the water.
Water's so murky,
that's it.
yeah.
The water's so muddy. Live bait fishing during the daytime, I'm having problems with clients. I'm swimming a mullet down a seawall, and the snook will come up. You'll see that snook. Usually, instead of just hitting them, they're coming up in between the mullet and the corks that I fish with. They're sliding in between the two of them and tracking the fish, and then kind of doing like a wahoo does, sliding out and then coming back in and hitting it. But once they hit the bait, they'll knock that bait in the air. And once they knock that bait in the air and it hits the water, they're like, where'd it go? Because they can only see, even though they have that lateral line, their vision, they're still, look, they don't have x-ray vision, they have vision. And they're fish. They're hungry. These fish are hungry. Even though this mullet run starts winding down, we go through a phase where everything slows down snook-wise. And what happens is, these snooks slow down a little because they've been stuffing themselves. It's almost like a bear feeding for the winter. But that doesn't last long, because they have to eat in order to maintain survival. It's all about survival of the fittest. They're going to eat. The tarpon, they're still tarpon, but most of these tarpon have moved outside the inlets or near the mouths of the inlet, like Palm Beach Inlet to South Jetty. There's some the resident tarpon hanging around that area. Boynton, you've got a lot of these tarpon that have moved offshore, and when I say offshore, they're not hanging out in 10, 12 foot of water. They're moving out to 15 to 50 foot of water.
So they're on that first reef line almost.
They'll go out to that first reef, and because they're out there looking for food too. Everything's hungry. Inshore, the big jack crevalles, they're around, but you're also going to have a problem with them targeting, honing in on baits. Artificial baits, really the way to go. Flashy stuff, not monster stuff. Like a 5-inch, a W5 wind cheater, something flashy, and a green mackerel, or the black and silver, something flashy. Flashy's what's going to make it work. You mentioned a spoon last week.
The spoon?
Those spoons will work inshore. You don't just fish them on the beaches. You can take a spoon and throw it down a seawall. If you're in your boat or on foot, either way, parallel the seawall. Get it about anywhere. I like to fish as tight as I can. 1.5 feet, 2 foot off that seawall, and just grind it. I call it coffee grind. Grind that thing down that seawall. If them jacks are around, they're going to want to bulldoze it.
Yeah, you'll be surprised how fast you can reel to how fast those fish can hit. You are not going to reel faster than that fish.
Not for them big turbo
No.
jack crevalles. And the top water baits and the chartreuse color, something flashy, silver and black, or chartreuse on the surface with the flashy sides.
anything like that. Now, I was going to roll over to fresh water real quick if you
let's have
wanted
fresh
to.
water, you know?
Look, with all this fresh water they're dumping out of the spillways right now, guys, the canal systems in Palm Beach County it's looking bone dry. I went out today and did a bunch of research because I had a little time off after this morning. It's dry. And the canals, all these fish have moved off. Andy could probably tell you more about what they do, but I do it enough to know that these fish have moved out of the shallows and they're going to be down in the deep stuff on the edges, and they're fixing a bed. So this isn't the best time for all this water to be dumping like this because these fish need to bed and they're being forced to bed in deeper water. Granted, they're not going to bed in current. They're going to go somewhere out of the way where there's eddies, the little finger canals and things like that to start bedding. The peacock bass, they're on fire too, but everything is being pushed into the deeper water and the water temps are dropping. So I definitely go fish. If I had the time to do it this weekend, if you got a small boat and you can't go offshore, go inshore, man. Go inshore and fish for those snook, fish for them jack crevalle, or go try some freshwater stuff. But use small baits. In the freshwater, I'm using a little 3-inch bait.
So even with the saltwater, with the snook, fishing the bridges, you talk about fishing the top. Sometimes with that dirty water, I still like to dredge the bottom with a bright bait, and I'll go a little slower, pop it every once in a while, let that flare hawk open up, and it's a different kind of thump when you're fishing those.
It's the best thump you'll ever have.
It feels.
He's talking about the flare hawk feathers, and the chartreuse with that red hawk tail.
He knows my favorite color. On that
orange I won't go there. He's got a secret color, and I'm not going to let it out of the bag because it works. He knocked me out of the water. We went fishing, and this guy just blew me out of the water in my backyard. So
yeah, but
I got even with him.
You got even with me on the offshore. But we talked about that on the colors wise. If you dredge that bottom and you do it nice and slow, you get a good rhythm. What you want to do is when you're doing that at nighttime, I like working, and it's hard. It's really hard getting your speed right.
It's a feel.
It's a feel with the current and everything. You got to get your speed right, but you really want to get that bait about that much off the bottom. And when those big trophy-sized snook, picture-worthy snook, hit those things, hold on.
And you're right about that, and here's why. Because snook, basically, your bigger snook are going to be laying on the bottom there. If you look at a snook, their belly's flat. The big girls like to lay down deep underneath all them little guys that you're going to see swimming around the bridge, which are a blast to catch.
They are a blast.
Using small, weedless jerk baits or something with a 1/4-ounce jig head. But just get that flare hawk down. Once you feel that thing on the bottom, just speed your retrieve up just a hair and lift your rod tip maybe an inch or two, and it's going to pick that bait up like Devin's saying, about 3 to 4 inches off that bottom. And what's happening is, instead of bumping a snook, because in this dirty water you're going to be bumping a snook, that thing's going to hit them in the side of their head. But if you hit them right there with that thing,
he's going to open up.
They're going to open up and they're going to hammer that bait. There are a lot of big snook around right now on these bridges.
I don't know what the heck those things look like or mimic a fish, but when those snook hit that flare hawk, you better hang on, buddy, because it is a thump that is like no other.
It's something most people that have never done it before. A lot of the people that fish with me from up north, they're like, dude, you told me beware of that thump, and they're like, I've never felt anything like that in my life. And
they hit that thing like it's the worst thing in the world. They want to kill it.
They're wiping it out
Anyway, well, that's your inshore report. Stick to the bridges, stick to the lights. We tell you how to work the top, work the bottom. Jack crevalle, they're fun to catch. If you're taking the kids out, it's a blast.
Can't beat it.
We'll see you next week.
The bait of the week with Captain Danny Barrows. Glad to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
All right.
Not much elbow room.
Not much elbow room. You're all right. So anyway, we're going to talk about a couple things that actually somebody here mentioned about the True Reds, that there's 2 weekends now. They're closing the Atlantic, but there's 2 weekends that they're opening up next weekend and the following weekend. There's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that correct?
Correct. There's going to be 2 weeks. It's this weekend and next weekend. That's the true American red snapper, which it's one of these, you're not allowed to touch the fish, don't go near the fish, you ain't allowed to keep the fish.
And the funny thing is, this is what gets me.
Well, there's none left. There's none. Talk to any of these commercial boys that go up there north of Jupiter Inlet and up into the Stewart area and up into St. Augustine, and they'll tell you how they can't get a grouper because they try to drop baits down to get a grouper, and these American red snappers are all over them things. They got to be 20 inches long to keep. And you've got this weekend and there's
Oh,
no
there's no size.
no size limit.
This weekend and next.
No size limit.
Thank God for audiences, huh, guys?
Yeah, thank God for audience.
If you guys could see what's behind the camera, there's way, yeah, you in the
No, but-
back, way back there, yeah, 50 rows back, and the mezzanine. But anyway, it's the true American red snapper. There's 2 weeks open, and it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend and next weekend. If you know where they're at and you want to go get one, if I was you,
Well,
I would.
I bet you there's a reason why there's no size limit, and I'm gonna make a suggestion and say that because where they're fishing in deep water like this, the ventilation situation, 90% of these fish you let go are going to die anyways. So that's probably why, and I'm assuming, of course, that the reason why they don't have a size limit. What do you think about that?
I think I need to look at my books and make sure that I'm right when I start saying, hey, there's a 20-inch size limit. I thought it was 20 inches. I've been told I was wrong, which is a good thing for you guys, because now you go out there and get you an 18-inch one, put that sucker in the frying pan.
There you go. And there's another regulation, not another regulation, but another situation out there. Hog snapper is closed starting November 1st, which was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Now we cannot recreationally catch them or spearfish for them, which doesn't make sense to me because most of the hog snapper that are caught are spearfished anyways.
I knew you were going to go here, and I can only agree with you.
I have to.
I'm in
go
full
here.
agreement with you.
So
on this.
anyway, this being said, why are they putting regulations on something that recreationally is not putting any dent on whatsoever? So if I go out there and I'm snapper fishing and I just somehow luckily, because I'm going to say lucky, that's usually
Pure
the case,
luck thing.
we catch a hogfish. We are not allowed to keep it because of this new regulation, or the new season, rather say. It's not
Correct.
really
It is a closed season. Bottom line, illegal to harvest.
And now I don't understand it for whatever reason. They never had a regulation on it, and the fishing industry does not put a dent. I mean, as far as recreational fishing, does not put a dent on hog snappers.
What he's talking
Why?
about, he's talking hook and line.
Why?
Hook and line fishermen. It's like a live shrimp, you know. I did it when I was a kid. It was like we'd go over to the Bahamas, and I'm like, Dad, I need to bring some aerators and things. For what? I got to bring some live shrimp, so because they'd spearfish them and fill a cooler full of hog snapper spearfishing. But the hook and line guy, where's Andy's going with this, is the spear gun guy can go down there and whack them. They're easy. They're stupid. They look right at you. You shoot them. You fill your cooler up with your limit. You go to the house. The hook and line guy rarely catches a hog snapper on hook and line. So it's like what they should have done, and then I'm in agreement with this with Andy, is said, look, there will be no harvest with spear guns, but you can harvest with hook and line. But what happens there is they go, no, wait a minute, how about if we stun it with a golf ball with this? I didn't want to go there, because somebody will think of a way to get them and put it on a hook and say, reel it up, tug on the line, one of those deals. It's never-ending regulations, but like we said, you got to have some regulation, but don't over-regulate. Don't
over-regulate.
He gets really mad when you start over-regulating him. It's like telling me you can't fish here.
Now, granted, I mean, nobody out there is just going to say, "Oh, I'm going hog snapper fishing today." I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to say that. And they might go say, "I'm going hog snapper spear fishing," but they're not going to say, "I'm going hog snapper fishing." It's just not logical. It just doesn't happen. So that being said, I think the hook and line thing is a ridiculous rule there for that matter. But you know what? We still got to obey them.
Got to play by the rules.
Got to play by the rules. So, but nevertheless, if you guys got any, we'd like to hear your feedback. By the way, so if you definitely want to say something about what I just said or what Danny just said, please email us at xgenfishing@gmail.com. Again, xgenfishing@gmail.com. We like to hear your thoughts and comments because we're not always right, and we always do have our opinions, and our opinions are not always the best, but we do have our opinions. And so that being said, email us again at xgenfishing@gmail.com. That's our debate of the week. Weather and predictions, Mike, what do you got for us?
The weather this weekend, just a quick general weather prediction. From what I'm seeing, northeast winds roughly 3 to 5 feet, give or take, on certain days, with Sunday showing the best day. So
that means no sword fishing for me on Saturday?
No. I mean, unless you're crazy or something. But what that does mean, northeast winds, a little rougher seas, sailfish, dolphin, kite fishing, live bait fishing if you're going, offshore fishing.
I would definitely, kite fishing would be the ideal thing to do this weekend, especially if you're a sailfisher. You like to go for sailfish. That's a negative in our book, of course. We always talk about it. We hate sailfish. You know how people say they love kingfish and we hate sailfishing. Yeah, they're just a nuisance. Normally because we fish tournaments, guys, it's not really. We've caught them by the thousands, and it's almost pretty easy to go out there and catch one. But this time of year, you're going to start seeing these sailfish moving in from the north, coming down and pushing through with this weather. So keep that in mind. Sailfish fishing is going to be pretty hot here in the near future, especially with the cold fronts coming.
And for those of you that don't go live bait fishing because buying live bait's so expensive and this and that, spend some time and go through the intercoastal for a little bit, get net some mullet, learn how to throw a cast net, and you can have a very nice day with some live mullet, drifting live mullet, anywhere from putting it down below all the way up top, and you can even put mullet on the kite. You can overstuff them in your live well. They survive. They don't, they'll last all day. And basically, so you have no excuse to not go live bait fishing. There's some blue runners around as well, so if you want to add some mix into that, you could easily get live bait without spending a ton of money right now.
Right, well, that is true, and a lot of people aren't buying a lot of frozen bait for that matter either, because they go out and catch their own live bait right now. What I would suggest also, if you're not into the kite fishing and you're not into, and it might not be as rough as they say, even if you don't have to go very far, the bottom bite I think is going to be ideal for most people who definitely want to go fishing. And I mean, it's going to be a beater out there, but I don't want to say it's not fishable. For the most part, I'd probably say it's small craft, no, but for the most part, I think you can get out there, and especially if you don't want to go far, bottom fishing would be your ticket right there. I think that I've been hearing good reports of the bottom fishing all across the board, like Mike was talking earlier about the vermilions, the mangroves. I just saw a picture of a mangrove that somebody sent me. This was down south, though, and this mangrove was literally 12 pounds. I mean, it was enormous, man. I mean, I'll show you guys once I'm done with the show here. When you see the picture of this mangrove, you'll be shocked, because it's the biggest one I think I've ever seen, at least on picture-wise. It's pretty big.
And as we spoke about earlier, the wahoo bite should be good. Depending on the seas, it might be hard to troll for them, but if you can, the wahoo bite should be all right. Just try and find that bluer water. Try and find the better water with the brown water coming out. Go deeper if you have to. Run your planers deeper if you have to, because sometimes that brown water will stay on top.
And that brown water is a salinity level too, so you got to think, okay? If you're a diver, you would understand that if you go down, you have a salinity level on the surface, especially when so fresh water stays on top, salt water stays on the bottom. So what happens is with all this fresh water runoff off, there's a layer, if you want to call it that, there's a layer of fresh water on the surface. These fish do not want to stay on that fresh water. They're not used to it. So that being said, they're going to be down below that layer. So you can figure out, not necessarily it's a thermocline, but you can figure out normally what depth that thing is. If you look through in your radar or your sonar, then you can see where that water salinity level is.
You'll see where the bait schools are hanging out at and stuff like that. But yeah, so run your planers a little bit deeper, run your baits a little bit deeper if you're live baiting, and the wahoo should definitely be biting.
I would take high speed trolling out of the equation on this certain area with all the fresh water is being dumped, but I could see some wahoo being caught this weekend, so especially on the live bait too, even on the kite. So
that's right.
Keep that in mind. We got the name of the species of the week right now. It is now a $100 gift certificate to xgen. You must name the species correctly. We're not looking for just one. We're looking for the true name of this species, and you must email us at xgenfishing@gmail.com. The first person with the correct answer and the first person who emails us with the correct answer will get that $100 gift certificate, and you must watch the show next week to see if you are the winner.
We will not email you back to say, hey, you are the one who won. You have to watch the show the following week to find out if you are the winner.
And you must email us back in response quickly on that so you can redeem your $100 gift certificate. And we'd like to thank our sponsors. Mike, let's go.
Xgeneration, WRPBI TV, Shark Fever, Silver Linings Charters with Danny Barrow, Mad Sun Fishing with Captain George, and J-Cam Lures.
Support your local tackle stores. We'll see you next week.
And employees.
In fact, there was an enterprise employee who came up with the idea of picking you up when you need to rent a car.
It was a great idea.
At your house, at the repair shop, we'll pick you up.
Wherever you need us.
We'll be there. Listening, Let us show you what that means.
Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.